All right. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks,
Um,
Gary.
good chance to have a little conversation, but I want to start out the way I'm starting out with everybody, and that is absolutely congratulations for passing our L6 and L7, our first 100. Kind of had to do it a little bit of a crunch time. We kind of expect most people in the market might take a year or so to get both of these, but um, we want to test the water, proof in the pudding kind of leadership from the front mentality. So we had you guys do it in a pretty rapid time frame because we wanted our best people to see both sides and make sure we could validate it and it was realistic and everything was aligned. So not an easy feat to do either one, and doing both really quickly is pretty amazing. So definitely congratulations on that.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be part of the 99 smartest people and having the most opinionated person join them.
And there you go. Well, tell us a little bit about how opinionated you are and how you came about that. What's been your career so far up until how you got into Arista and all this? What'd you do before? Um, you obviously didn't get out of college last year and just suddenly get to this level. So what has led you here?
It has been a very interesting journey. I was actually a chemistry major in college, was pretty burned out, and just decided to take a break. Got a job, ended up at MCI working on 800, 900 phone numbers. And that was really fun because you would have an 800 number charity line all of a sudden get hacked to a 900 number naughty number. And so we dealt with that a bunch when I was at MCI. Switched over to AT&T where I started programming PBXs and IVRs. And then I took a 10-year hiatus
There you go.
to raise three boys.
Nice.
And after 10 years and a couple of changes in life, I just realized I needed to get back to work. And I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go in, if I wanted to stay with voice or if I wanted to move over to the data side of things. So I took the CCNA voice, passed that. I took the ICND 1 and 2 and passed those and tricked my way to get into Cisco. Um, we actually had a training program for people returning back to work, which what I thought was a really good program. And it was just a 6-month training. And I had spoken to Mike Cho, and he's like, "Hey, we'd love to interview you." And I kind of fudged a little bit. I said I was in town, and did he mind if I just showed up and talked to him in person? And he said, "Well, actually, we're giving this test to the people currently in the program. Why don't you stop by?" So I stopped by. I took the test. He said I did better than half the participants, which made me feel better and told me that I would be hired into the next program.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. I've known you for a little bit, so I did know you had taken a 10-year break, though. That's impressive as hell, to be straight up, Sarah. That's to take a break, get rusty, and jump from voice over into route and switch data center side. That's a pretty large jump anyway. So
It was a
that's
lot of
huge.
studying, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of getting that steel wool and rubbing off the rust because there was quite a bit.
Yeah. So then did you start at Cisco? How long were you there? What'd you do there?
So I did, and then through the program, you don't really know where you're going to end up in Cisco, and I ended up on the Nexus team. Loved it. Worked there for 3 years. Learned everything inside and out at Nexus. It was really cool technology what we were doing, but to be fair, it was mainly a lot of bug chasing and not necessarily learning the different technologies, but just answering customer phone calls who had just run into a new bug that we hadn't seen before and working with the BU trying to resolve those bugs.
Right.
While I was on the Nexus team, I got my CCIE in DataCenter.
Okay.
And then I moved over to a company called IP Expert, where I taught the data center CCIE. And that was an interesting experience. You might want to cut this from the recording later, but the CEO was a very interesting character, and I had to quit after 2 months because it was bad. He ended up going to prison. But the great news is, and if you want to just cut that out and skip from going to Cisco, taking a little 2-month vacation, and then coming over to Arista, we can do. That's probably a better thing to do.
Yeah. Well, that story is pretty well known. So, you know, for those that knew, and a lot of,
If you're familiar with IP Expert.
yeah, a lot of great teaching and a lot of great information came out of that, especially around the
There were
CCIE world.
instructors there.
Yeah, but
And Wayne, he's a genius. He is. He doesn't have the best morals.
yeah, little eccentric. That'd be the right word. But no. So how'd you go from there to Arista? What was the jump there?
So I knew Joe Duberry. I worked with a Duberry over at Cisco, and he's a really fun guy. Mentored me throughout my 3 years at Cisco. And he said, "Why don't you come up to Arista? I think it's time." And I agreed with him. Came over and started on the TAC team. Did that for 3 years. And then Divya asked me to start building out the new hire training program. So I did that for the next 3.5 years. And then that was a pretty well-oiled machine where we had students actually coming back and teaching the new hires, which I think led to a ton of success because, as you know, you really don't fully understand a technology until you've taught it. And I think going through the training program and then returning to teach is just a brilliant idea and worked really well for us. After that, the position opened up for the systems engineer role in the North Carolina, South Carolina territory, and I jumped at the chance.
So how many years so far at Arista?
It will be 8 years, September 15th.
8 years. Yeah, I'm hitting 5 in October.
Wow.
So it's,
I mean, it's flown by.
it does. It goes really quick, and because it's really a fun place. And I've been around vendors. I've been in and out. You know, been on the customer side. Same thing. I had similar kind of. I think most of us have a fairly similar journey of somebody was trying to get us to come on inside Arista. I don't think very few of us just walked off the street. I mean, I think we're starting to get a little bit more in that now, but you know, it's the same thing chasing you down. But it's been a blur and it's been fun. It's challenging. I love being at a place where I believe in the product and the architecture and can go stand behind it. You know, it's just good engineering. And you know, I mean, we're a company like any other company. We're growing. We got our growth issues and, you know, all the little things that you do. But overall, I mean, I've always if I got bored in a job, then I was probably getting ready to leave the job, and I have yet to even remotely get close to getting bored here. You know, so it's been kind of fun. So as you came in and did this, and having the CCIE behind you and having approached that, what was some of the things that kind of stuck out to you, that comparatively speaking, and you know, and I mean, the point of these is to help others that are watching this that just haven't even realized we have an expert program out there, that we have something like CCIE or JNCIE. So we're obviously not here. I mean, I still 100% believe in the program. I wouldn't be where I am in my career if I hadn't did a lot of stuff around that. Same with you. I mean, a lot of us have built our careers on the back of something that's centered around, you know, CCIE and what was there. But how are we doing it different? What would be your answer to that? If you were telling out the world out there with somebody who was like, "Oh, I didn't know you have it." What do we do different?
Well, fundamentally, when I completed the L6 and the L7, I felt like a better engineer. I felt better prepared to help my customers, to ask better questions, to be able to propose various solutions that are real world solutions to make their networks more consistent, more stable, more predictable, versus when I passed the IE, it was more just a relief that I passed a test. And I didn't feel like a better engineer. I just felt like I had conquered a mountain. And I believe if you are taking trainings and then you're being tested at the end of those trainings, that you should be better at your job. Why else would you take those certifications? It's not just to say, hey, I passed a test. Look at the sheet of paper. Look at my pretty plaque. If I pass those types of tests and then I'm still needing to call TAC for the simplest of problems, I'm not a better engineer. I have, you know, my number or my plaque or whatever, but I am still completely reliant on TAC. And with the ACE, I felt the whole journey was very different. The expectation is if you paid attention in class, if you studied, if you did the lab work, is to pass the exam. That is not the expectation with the other one. The expectation is think of all these corner cases and learn these older technologies that no one uses in their networks today versus, hey, what do you need to run a successful modern network? And then take this class, take the exam, and then pass. And then you realize, oh my goodness, this is what I do day in and day out. And now I understand what I'm supposed to do day in and day out that much better.
It's probably one of the things that's coming up very, and I'm not stopping it because I think it's just a lot of different ways of saying this kind of thing is, the way that we summarize it from my perspective and the training team pushing out is, these are operational checks. We're checking your operational readiness. To me, that's what customers are paying for. And when they send their people through to get training, how do they measure their return on investment for paying for that? And we charge for it because it costs us a lot of money, and we maintain really high end people, and we don't shortcut things. I don't go to the cheapest instructor in the market. I'm generally looking for the most expensive one. I want the guy to, or the lady that's the sharpest in that particular area. So we have real cost in it, but when a company pays for those costs, what do they get out of ROI? And it should be that their engineers are better engineers after they've been trained. We filled a gap. That gap should reduce a risk. So to me, it is an operational readiness check. And I've said this a couple of times where, when I first got in here, two things really challenged me. I kind of took it as this is what I need for my direction is, Ken Duda saying, I really love smart people when smart people work on our equipment. I'm like, oh boy. So I got to go make smart people. That's going to be fun. I've been training for a long time, and not everybody who shows up is always a smart person. Two is, how do we get some sort of way of making people really be able to dial into what they're doing in their job and give that training manager or that VP that's paid for this for their team the kind of feedback to say, is that person ready to take over the change window on Friday night? Do you trust that person to successfully execute the window? So that's what we modeled it after. And I love, we don't have a best practice. We were actually having a side conversation before we started this about, technologies. There's choices everywhere in technologies. And some are better than others for different scenarios. And then some are just strictly just corner cases where there's just no other way to solve it other than doing something that's suboptimal and putting something in to deal with it. And you just have to deal with that. But that's what TAC is for, is those corner cases, right? Of course, we train our TAC engineers in all the corner cases. Like that's what they need to know. But for a regular engineer at a regular customer, my opinion, BGP, EVPN, VXLAN, you already got like 3 of the top 10 hardest technologies to learn in the industry are already at play. I don't really need to add anything else to it. It's just, can you get that right in the right way? And I love that is one thing that we do is we don't necessarily go out and say, this is a best practice. This is a typical solution. This is a recommended practice.
Right.
What is your underlay? Well, there's 4 of them. There's 3 of them. There's 2 of them. You as a customer may only be able to use 1 of them, but there's other ones out there and they're all recommended in their scenarios. Now we may lean towards one, but that should be plenty to test people on because that's hard enough. I mean,
right.
Trying to get EVPN automated with Ansible in a playbook and roll that out is that's by far the hardest thing that I've seen in my career of 30 years. So why do I need to add dial backup with ISDN on the blue moon on the second Tuesday of the month just to see if you can freaking do it? I would much rather know that you can just do the thing that we see happening in every customer that we have, and you don't need to call TAC on that because you do feel confident that you know it. I love it. I get that feedback a lot. People that fail the exam and email me, not complaining, thanking me. It blows my mind. It's every time I get it, like, this is great. I didn't pass on the first time. I passed on the second time, and I'm glad because I wasn't ready the first time. Like that to me says we got some genuine, perspective that we've captured on. So it is
That's
all the way through.
That's another key point that you just made, that people who are going to be interested in the ACE are people who are genuinely interested in learning and becoming better engineers, because you do expect that pass after the first time or the second time, where if it is the second time, they know exactly what they did wrong and they learned from their mistakes. It's not the second time they're going to be given a completely different exam with different corner cases and different legacy protocols. It's what were their gaps? Let them address those gaps. And then again, they're just a better engineer once they do pass.
Right.
But there's such a tremendous value in approaching the certification that way versus just trying to make money, or for people who are just trying to get a cert to add to their resume.
Right. It does aggravate people quite a bit when they come into us and they go to apply for an exam date and we're like, when did you take training? And they're like, what? I just want to take the test. Well, we're not going to do that. We've designed some pretty crafty things that you'll never get the same exam again. So we could do it and still not have the same cheating problem that a lot of others do, because we can randomize it and make sure that we do it in a very modular way. So I can give you an infinite number of, I think, maybe like 10,000 attempts, and then you're going to get the second one, you're going to get one again. But we look at people and go, why? What is the point of that? What are you doing to go out there and just take this test 10 times and try to learn on the test? We have a much easier way for you to do that. We have an entire lab guide. It's a lot cheaper, and you could just go do the labs 10 times, and then when you get that good, you're ready to go pass the test. It's not complicated, but we're not going to let you practice. Right.
And you're ready to be a phenomenal engineer.
Yep. So what do you think of our approach of doing the L6 before L7? Because that's another thing that I think a lot of people are out in the market going, it's kind of strange. Nobody else does that. None of the other vendors do that. Everybody starts with, hey, come in and show me how fast you can configure BGP blindfolded and handcuffed in the dark. But our challenge, at least mine had been, and this is where I pushed my opinion into the program a little bit, was I was really tired of interviewing and getting people to come in. And I mean, getting somebody that's a triple CCIE today, it's not that hard to get 25 resumes in a minute, that people are collecting them. And then you end up getting in an interview and you find out that they just, like, where do you not know when to use these technologies? Sure, you're the great guy on a change window if you're an implementation engineer and you need to type really, really fast. That's great. But that's not necessarily what all customers are hiring when they're looking for that expert level. They're looking for somebody to help them engage with us. And we're saying, hey, you should do leaf spine. And they go, why? And, we need that dialogue.
I'd even disagree that I would want that. I don't want someone who can push out a change control really quick if they don't understand the what and why of what they're doing. Because if something goes wrong, they're screwed. And they're calling TAC, and then there's going to be a great amount of time lost just trying to explain to TAC what they're attempting to do. But if you understand the what and why of what you're doing, and something goes wrong, then you immediately know, oh, this is why I see the symptom, because I did this. And for putting the L6 beforehand, the L6 is basically an RFP, and that's just understanding the right questions to ask, understanding what the customer is trying to achieve, what are the various options to achieve those goals, to align with those strategies. And then once you've accomplished that with a customer, then to go out and deploy it, to build it and actually deploy it. And that's real world. You don't go out and deploy it and then ask questions and then look for it. You do that first. And then once you have the plan and everyone's on board, then you implement the plan. So to me, it's just real world.
No, I love the way you describe it, because I mean, that was our goal, is to get it out and say, let's make sure you understand what the designs, what the protocols are, what the architecture is. What are your choices? When faced with this scenario, what are your choices of tools that you can bring to bear to solve the problem? Get you focused on that. Once you get that, now let's go see how well you can use the tools. And it only makes sense in that logic to me. And I think that's what we're setting out to do, is that if somebody makes it to L7, they had to have gone through L6, which means that we should have a much better quality of an engineer that's out there. Same thing in our approach of doing campus and data center and automation and all this stuff together instead of having a different track for each one. And I don't fault the other programs for having different tracks. They've grown into that. That's evolved. We're second mouse to the cheese in a way. So we had to start from scratch, when I started the program, and I was like, well, let's be the vendor of the next 20 years, not the vendor of the last 20 years. There's a couple of them in that space already.
That makes perfect sense because we're designing networks for the next 20 years, not the past 20 years.
Right. And today, those things are all merged together. I don't know very many, and I do get to interface with quite a few of our customers. And yes, we have some that are in just a campus design, but very quickly, those usually turn into a data center or vice versa.
Right.
And they grow. And because when people look at us and realize the reason that we're suggesting EVPN, for example, is because these are things that we learned from supporting cloud titans for years on how to scale and do
Right.
all that very well. So now we're bringing those lessons learned into their data center.
It's a
And of
huge
course, they
advantage.
solve the same problem in the campus.
Yeah. No, there's so many advantages to being able to have your gold standard architecture and then just be able to stamp it and change the scale it down for campus, scale it up for larger data centers, and everything in between. So you can go to campuses around the globe, we can go to different data centers, and it's the same technologies, it's the same architecture, only the scale is different. So it just makes a world of difference when it comes to managing a global network infrastructure.
Yep. Well, last question I'll ask you, and then I'll let you off the hook is, you got people watching this that are coming behind, they're scratching their heads going, do I want to do this? What would be any advice or warnings that you could offer them as far as what to study, what to go after? And I mean, I will predicate that by just saying that we've said this on numerous of these interviews so far is one thing that I'm super proud of is the blueprint for the exam is very simple. There's nothing on L6 and L7 that is not taught between L1 and L5. There is no secret. There's not another book you need to go buy. There's not another separate thing. If you know the information that's taught in those 5 courses, then you have everything you need to have to pass L6 and L7, except for maybe the experience in the practice time. But outside of just, things like that, any words of just advice that you would throw out there?
Advice. Well, pay attention during class and then actually do the lab work. I think for people nervous about taking it, thinking it might be, well, it's Arista proprietary. I don't know that I want to go in that direction when the world might still be significantly other vendors. What I would say to them is that Arista is based on open standards. There's very little proprietary, and for proprietary things like MLAG, we have options like EVPN multi-homing. So you can go in and take these classes, get well-versed in industry standards for EVPN, VXLAN, Layer 2 LACP, spanning tree, Layer 3, BGP OSPF, ISIS, and then just be prepared for any role you might find yourself in. I think that's a huge advantage versus taking other company certs because then it is so proprietary. And maybe it does prepare you a little bit for those roles. These certifications make you a generalist expert in industry standards for modern networks. And I don't think any other vendor certification can say that.
No, I really, really love the way you just described it, Sarah. I mean, it is. If you go look at our 2 biggest competitors, to get the same skill set validated that we're doing in L6 and L7, you would have to go take multiple tracks. I mean, to get EVPN is in one track. It's not necessarily in the data center track. To get that combined with, leaf spine type technologies, it's you'd have to take multiple tracks, and most don't make it through that. I mean, it's definitely a lot more common today because, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's cheating or whatever, but there's a lot more volume that goes through today. It's a lot more resources to go learn those exams. But you're right. I mean, I don't think our leadership loves it when I say that out loud, but the reality is this this training will make you better at Cisco or Juniper or Extreme or anybody else for that matter if they're using EVPN. Now, maybe they don't turn on everything that's open. Maybe they have their own restrictions because of their own proprietary stuff. But if you come here, you're gonna leave the door, and I will put my reputation behind. If you got this credential, you know EVPN, you know BGP, you know VXLAN, you know leaf spine. These are things that you will know, and you should be able to walk into anywhere and use those skills, which to me is a huge thing. I didn't set out to build a vendor neutral certification, but the reality is that's who we are at Arista.
Yep.
Is we use it just like it is, and I see that every day with our customers. I've seen customers that come in that are running dual vendor approaches. I'm coming in behind the training they've already gotten from another vendor. They're using the same architecture on both, and they end up rerunning their people back through our training because they're like, you guys are making us smarter, and that's what I take a lot of pride in, is that I think we've revolutionized this part of the industry by simply going back to just old school engineering.
Yeah.
Just
My favorite
learn
part was
the
learning
code.
Ansible as an automation option because many of my customers use Ansible and they use it to build out tools and to automate across all third-party devices, not just Arista. So Arista is playing friendly with anyone who also supports industry standards, but also just making the API open for easy integration with third-party tools, integration with Ansible and our Arista validated design modules. I don't know. I learned a tremendous amount.
Well, stay tuned. We are working on some multi-vendor specific training stuff where we're going to have that all the way down to the labs and let it do, because it's just the reality is um I don't know if we've passed the era where you're just going to have one vendor for anything anymore. I think the landscape is very rapidly changing in a lot of different ways, and it's not uncommon to do that. It's definitely not uncommon for us. We're always coming in with or behind somebody else. So I mean, if I was telling one of my kids, hey, if you're going to train for something in 20 years where you're going to make a lot of money, go learn these open standard things, because it seems to be that's going to be the trend that's going to take off. It's easier for the vendors to make money out of it. It's easier for them to put products out. So go learn multiple vendors. And that hasn't necessarily been an easy thing to do over time. But I mean, I've had this conversation with a very large customer not that long ago. You don't want to stay where you're at. You don't know if you're ready to make a decision where you go. But I promise you, if you want to leave that particular scenario that you have that's solving your data center today, you're going to EVPN. It's really the only other thing that's out there. So
Once you get over understanding how EVPN works, it's awesome.
Yep.
And the services and the flexibility that it gives you, yeah. There is a learning hump, but that's what you guys are for. And once you're over it, it's awesome. Troubleshooting is so easy, and just understanding workflows, optimizing, just packets running across your network. Terry, I do have a recommendation for you.
What's that?
Layer 8, troubleshooting.
Okay.
ACE L8. Not layer 8. Sorry, I was... Not the layer 8 human error, but the ACE L8. Make that a troubleshooting exam. Test our TAC engineers and the rest.
We are actually doing quite a bit now. We're looking at putting out going into Q4 this year, kind of October timeframe. You're gonna see a lot of changes, a lot of the updates that are coming out from us that we try to keep things updated every year. And we're gonna do a pretty big push in October. And I don't want to give away the goodies on all that yet, but this is something that we've done quite a bit of. I've been partnering with Divya, the head of our TAC organization, and we are her team has done some incredible jobs putting out some just regular webinars and things like this on troubleshooting operations. So we're kind of joining hands together on that to create an entire library of people. I mean, I tell my team all the time, I want to get to a very simple status, very traditional, long-standing 5-day training, things like this. It's good. It always has its place. But I'd like to see in the future if 5 people come to us for training. All 5 came from us from a different background. And they all 5 have different gaps to get to the same place that they're going. And training should be that adaptable that I can give 5 different paths for those people to get there. So we're building our platform out to the point of view that this is the guidance I give the team is, if I want to go learn how to change the tires on my Tesla, probably the first thing I'm going to do is go search YouTube. I'm going to go see how people did it. What have they done? I'm going to look and I'm going to find a 20-minute video and I'm going to go, okay, I can do that. And then I'm going to go out there and try it. I think that's the future of training, is you should be able to go back in and look at any of this stuff. So whether it's troubleshooting, whether it's configuring BGP, whether it's you forgot the 4 commands on MBLAG, what are they, is getting people down to where we can get those kind of spot check YouTube type feel of training that you still trust. And then adding that stuff up together to say, all right, what are my gaps? What do I need to get to a mastery of EVPN? I mean, some people, they need to go back and learn BGP. I mean, that's the first step in EVPN, is realize it's just BGP. It's not something unique by itself. It's just a form of BGP. And that's a protocol that scares people. Just like ISIs, it's scary because it's a big protocol. It's capable of a lot of things. So, yeah, no, I love it. I love the idea. All right, well, Sarah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Terry. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. And congratulations again.
Thank you.